why I don't use Notion on my iPhone 13 mini. So for a while now, I have a love and hate relationship with the Notion app on iOS. So every time I download the Notion application, I think that maybe this is the time where I'm actually going to be using Notion on my iPhone as a default note-taking application and for other productivity stuff on my iPhone 13 mini. But then after a week, I always go back to the same conclusion and I always delete the application. Now, of course, I know that Notion is a web app application first, so maybe that's why the developers haven't really updated Notion too much on iOS, even though they do update the application, fix the bugs and everything, but it just doesn't feel like a native application on my iPhone. It feels like mostly like a web app, since yes, Notion is a web app first application, since that's where a lot of the users are, and that's how a lot of people are using Notion. It's not mostly on iOS, but of course on the Mac, on Windows, because it just feels and looks really nice there, and it just works as well. And a lot of people are using Notion on the computers and not on their phones as well. So every time after a week, usually I always delete Notion off my iPhone because it just doesn't feel native enough. I don't feel comfortable using Notion on the iOS ecosystem just because it doesn't feel like an iOS application. It feels like a web app on it feels like a web app stuck inside a iOS app, if you understand what I mean right there. So it's a little bit confusing. So that's why I always delete the application and just go back to the basics and just go back to my Notes app and just start writing whatever I need to write about. And then I'll just later in the day, if I'm back onto my office, I'll just airdrop it into my Mac and just copy and paste it into the notes, into my Notion notes from there, so that I have everything nicely organized. So yeah, it's just a very interesting relationship I have with the Notion app on iOS, because it doesn't feel like an iOS app. If you open the application, of course, it doesn't look or feel like an iOS app, even though it is an iOS application as well. It just doesn't act that way, if you know what that means. Now, of course, this is like I said in the beginning of the video, it's because Notion is a web app first. A lot of the users are using Notion on the web. If we see a lot of YouTubers and everything like that, or you see other productivity people and how they use, and probably their clients, a lot of them are using Notion on the web, since that's where a lot of people use Notion, since they are using it to write stuff, to check their calendars, to add stuff to it. And just Notion is it's just a very big platform, but which makes it easy for a lot of people to do a lot of the stuff inside that platform. So yeah, I think that's why it just doesn't feel right. Now, I don't know if that's a limitation with maybe with the iOS ecosystem and Notion not being able to make it feel like an iOS app on the iPhone 13 mini, or maybe it's just the developers are not really that focused on iOS too much. They have the app there, they're just updating the application to fix the bugs and everything, but they're not really making it feel like an iOS ecosystem application. So who knows? But it's just a really fun love and hate relationship I have with Notion on the iOS ecosystem. I still use Notion on the web. I'm still using it right now to write a lot of my script for this video, to keep everything organized there. And I've been really, having fun with it. Like, I'm trying to use Notion a little bit more on the web, just because I just need an area to have everything nicely closely and connected, so that I don't get confused. Because before, I made a video, of course, where I talked about how I use 3 different applications to do what I do for YouTube, instead of having to use one application to do everything, like the Notion app, which I'm using right now on the web. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys want to hit the subscribe button, it'll mean the world to me. But also, if you want to keep up with other interesting videos like this, if you're interested with new iOS apps, productivity, and just technology as well, then I highly recommend you guys go check out, subscribe to the channel, because it will mean the world to me as well. And that's pretty much it for this video, and as always, I will see you guys later. Peace.